Hello, heathens! Today we're going to be looking at the taxes portion of all four candidates in the presidential election right now here in the United States. The reason why I'm doing this is because when I started dissing Jill Stein on both my page and here on YouTube, that one of the biggest and most important comments I got was that I should really judge her on her whole platform and not just a couple of reasons. I think that that's a wonderful idea, and I wanted to bring you guys along on the journey. We'll start off the top with Donald Trump. In general, Donald Trump wants to cut taxes at all income levels. No taxes for individuals making less than $25,000 and couples making less than $50,000. Make the highest individual rate 33%. Highest corporate 15%, which it's currently at 34%. Significant business tax cuts and a deduction for childcare expenses. Now, what it seems like to me on Trump's platform here on taxes is that he's wanting to get the biggest voter base to support the cutting of taxes and individuals like he once considered himself. One of the best ways to get a large voter base to rally behind you in this area would be to say, hey, you don't have to pay taxes. And that's exactly what he's saying to a good portion of the nation. That when he gets into office, that he will make it so that they don't have to pay taxes. But he also wants to cut the taxes of the top 1% as well as wealthy businesses. To me, this screams that he's just setting himself up for a post-presidency career. He's setting up businesses and tax codes so that he can make a lot of money afterwards by getting a large voter base to support them. There's just one big problem here, is that he's doing a lot of cutting in the taxes, but he's not filling the gaps anywhere. There's been an independent research on his tax plan here, which there has been a counter plan proposed to Trump, but he has not approved it yet. But currently, Trump's plan would cause about $10 trillion to be added to the debt. This is very troubling considering that he thinks that we can just print more money in order to not default on all of our debt. But at the same time, he's worried about inflation. I don't think he knows what that word means. The revision to his tax code would only add about $3.8 trillion to the deficit. As his plan stands now, he's going to send us into a depression or a recession. This tax plan is horrible. Next up is Hillary Clinton. In general, Hillary Clinton wants to tax the rich and leave the middle class pretty much the way it is. A large tax increase for the top 1%, and a new tax on mergers between U.S. companies and foreign corporations in order to reduce their taxes that they have to pay, aka an exit tax. Personally, I think that Hillary's plan is a pretty good one. I think that maybe a little bit more tax cutting in the middle and lower income classes if you increase the taxes on the top 1%. I think that, you could still pull the profit, if you will, the profit, I say that in quotes, profit, that her tax plan is slated to actually do, which an independent firm has studied her tax plan, has run the numbers, and in the first 10 years, this will generate about $1 trillion in surplus funds, and in the next 20 years, it could generate $2 trillion. Comparing this to Trump's plan, it's a whole lot better, considering the best Trump's plan can do is add $3.8 trillion to the deficit. Now, clench your buttholes because here comes Gary Johnson. In general, Gary Johnson says, fuck the IRS. He also says, fuck income and corporate taxes. Instead, instantiate a federal consumption tax, which would mean he wants to implement a fair tax of some sort. I mean, honestly, I don't even know what to say to this. He says that removing corporate taxes would end up creating a lot of jobs, but I just don't see the evidence to support this idea. He also claims that it would force immigrants to pay tax indefinitely. Immigrants would need to get on the books quick if they wanted to take advantage of these prebates that he says he will issue to families. These prebates are meant to offset the cost of the tax to low-income families. I think this proposal is just about as bad as Trump's. There hasn't been an independent study on his plan, but my guess is that this would definitely increase our deficit tremendously. For one thing, he wants to get rid of the IRS. Who's going to be processing all of these tax fees and everything that you're going to be taking in from all the states? Not only that, but you're going to be having a federal tax on top of the state sales tax that each state charges. You're going to end up having jobs needing to pay more in order to keep up with the cost of living. Prices of products would skyrocket, and we would see a whole new sets of prices for everything. But I guess he thinks this is going to work because apparently rich people buy much more expensive things and a lot more things than low-income class people. Which you could argue is a good idea, but I think that it won't offset the cost of basically letting go of the IRS and, several other departments that he wants to let go of. In the end, his plan would drive us even more into debt. Now, finally, Jill Stein. Now, please hold on to your criticisms. Think about what I'm saying and then comment. Because I am not a Jill Stein supporter, but I am going to lay the facts out for you and my take on it. In general, Jill Stein wants to make the rich quote-unquote, pay their fair share of taxes, and truly progressive tax code rewrites. Now, her tax plan is actually pretty vague. I have no idea what she means by pay their fair share. Is that just raising taxes only a little bit that you can barely even tell, or is it raising taxes a lot? Now, the tax cuts for working families is something that pretty much every other candidate is planning on doing, with the exception of Gary Johnson, who's just out there in far left field for some reason. Her truly progressive tax code rewrites, I don't know what that means. I mean, she's saying words that I want to agree with, but she's not explaining how she would get that done, whereas like Trump and Hillary and even Gary Johnson are explaining how exactly they would accomplish what they want to. Jill Stein, though, doesn't seem to have any kind of idea of how she wants to do it. All in all, her plan doesn't evoke any kind of confidence from me, and it doesn't make me want to support her at all. Thank you for joining me for this breakdown of taxes of all four political candidates. I hope that you will like this video, even if you disagreed with my take on it, just the information provided. Please subscribe if you would like to see more breakdowns of these important issues by the candidates, and I will see you guys in the next one. Jill Stein has recently made a lot of anti-science remarks, and a lot of them seem to be a little confusing, and then others are outright just stupid as fuck. Now, me personally...
If this kind of thing were disproportionately happening to atheists, we'd be justifiably up.
Okay, ironically, the background that you have there is actually denounced by the Black Lives Matter movement, like the chapter that's local to that group.